Gene, we have a situation brewing with the carbon dioxide.
We got a CO2 filter problem on the lunar module,
5 filters on the limb.
which are meant for 2 guys for a day and a half. So I told the doc,
You're already up to 8 on the gauges. Anything over 15 and you get impaired judgment, blackouts, the beginnings of brain asphyxia.
What about the scrubbers on the command module?
They take square cartridges.
The ones on the limb are round.
Tell me this isn't a government operation.
This just isn't a contingency we've remotely looked at.
Those CO2 levels are going to be getting toxic.
Well, I suggest you gentlemen invent a way to put a square peg in a round hole. Rapidly.
Okay, people, listen up. People upstairs handed us this one, and we gotta come through. We gotta find a way to make this fit into the hole for this, using nothing but that. Let's get it organized.
Okay, let's build a filter.
Better get some coffee going, too, someone.
This was not just expensive, it was actually life-threatening. Welcome to a shift-left journey. As we just saw, it can be pretty expensive to discover the issues in production. So in this particular case, there were actually 2 design teams that created the filter solution because it was asked for, it was the objective, and it was delivered. So far so good. Of course, nobody thought that there would be ever a need to exchange filters between the command module and the lunar module. And you cannot always anticipate all possible situations. Still, when the question was, we need a filter, why would you create 2 solutions for the same demand? I think because there was no awareness. The teams simply were not aware of what happened throughout the whole project. Now, this happens everywhere, all the time, and it can become pretty costly. As you can see in this sheet, the National Institute of Standards and Technology paper shows you in actually 309 pages how expensive things will become when you get into trouble in post-release. Now, in the early days of system development, the waterfall method was widely used as a linear process. There was a demand, a solution was sold, requirements were gathered, the solution was built, tested, and released. Or I must say, this is actually what we thought was released, and this is what actually was released. So eventually ending up with a solution that, well, resembled the demand, where actually this was the product goal. Clearly something had to change here. So when a software development process is viewed as a left to right sequential process, so in the past, doing tests earlier may be seen as shifting it to the left. So the term itself can be seen as a misnomer, since we are not simply shifting, but doing also tests at all stages of the process. Now, the idea of shift left was coined by Larry Smith in 2001 and was mainly used for testing. Now, we can utilize this principle of shift left also to other areas, of course, and it's all, well, intertwined, I would almost say. So, for example, if you take deployment, nowadays continuous deployment has become common practice to quickly deliver fixes and features and so on. Building and provisioning and deploying of software is automated. And in fact, continuous deployment enables continuous testing as well. And well, look at, for example, design. If you have poor requirements, so poor requirements can lead to a product not aligned with business needs. Going beyond those requirements, you can then sort of adopt the whole, and you can adopt the entire team to design thinking and mindset. So everyone would then have a shared vision of the product. As a matter of fact, I think the principle of shift left can be applied to your entire implementation lifecycle. So let me show you our view of it. I'm sure yours will look sort of similar to this one. So first, we think you need to build the right things. That's not completely the same as what a user wants, but what your user actually needs from a business perspective. So users often ask for functionality that's already there, but they might need better training or understand the process better. Or maybe it needs a bit tweaking on the UI. Also things like, or themes like good architecture principles spring to mind here, by the way. So the Apollo filter example would actually not completely apply here, as the question was, build a filter system. So the second thing is to build the things right. Do we have sufficient information to do the testing? But I guess even more importantly, are we actually aligned? Yes, we have developed a filter system, but look, the other project team came up with exactly the same functionality, however, with a total different design. Now, is that not a bit odd? Why do they need square boxes, whereas the others came up with a round one? So obviously, the earlier we discover these misalignments in the implementation cycle, the better. Shift left. Now let's look at some aspects we spoke about that relates to the ROI you can get with this shift left mindset. So we already talked about avoiding rework. So discovering issues up front saves a huge amount of time and resources. As a matter of fact, you could gain a reduction up to 80% here. However, it's not only rework. So, secondly, how many times do users ask for functionality they will never use? Now, why does that actually happen in the first place? I think it happens because a human simply cannot oversee everything. And bad or even no communication plays a big role here too. You actually want to have an overview, a central managed overview, a governed single source of truth. We find that not having that overview contributes negatively to this problem. Now here's the third one. You can actually accelerate your DevOps from weeks to days. This is related to proper risk mitigation. But then you obviously need to first understand the various risks. So what changes needs to go through serious governed cycles and what changes need a less governed process. So understanding those risks is key. If you have very low risk changes, you could even go like, and dare I say it, let's just do this in production. And there's another one. Understanding the actual business needs often also leads to improvements. That alone can lead to a 25% savings or even more. Think about simple but powerful achievements such as getting everyone way quicker on the same page. Because you have a single source of truth and found issues and challenges early in the process. And last but not least, here's an example. You just removed that pick list item of a field because you thought it was of no use. What you did not realize is that this very pick list item was supposed to get used in the yet-to-be-released work builder flow and was hard-coded in Apex. So early visibility of that saved a ton of disasters. Now, you heard me using the phrase single source of truth a couple of times. What I mean with that is that whatever role you have, for example, you're an end user, developer, analyst, project manager, whatever, you all ought to have a joint and aligned view of what is going on or what the business needs. So this joint view and alignment, or a single source of truth, is one of the biggest challenges in pretty much any business. Of course, you'll have your regular project meetings, workshops, etc. But how do you keep everything aligned? Where and how do you store your documentation? How do you ensure accuracy? The bigger your organization gets, the bigger these challenges will get. So how could you even begin to tackle this challenge? We use 3 simple principles in this respect. Now, obviously, we use Elements ourselves to do this, but more important is to get the ideas across. So first, you want to manage all your user stories centrally, not more or less loosely captured in various spreadsheets or PowerPoints, Word documents, and whatever you have, or even by project folders. And I say folders, not just one folder. No, you want to manage them thoroughly on a big pile. You also want them to be easy available for people who need them and in the right context. And with context, I mean things like to which business process is this story related, what potential risks are present, who are my stakeholders, etc. You could dump all that in one or more spreadsheets, but again, that will take a big toll on maintenance. And as practice often shows, fade away in time, as you simply have no time to spend on all that administration. Secondly, it makes a lot of sense to group the appropriate stories to the right release. How do these stories interact with each other? Are there any conflicts? Or do they support each other? And again, in what context? And then the third principle is where the magic happens. How do you link your metadata to your user stories? What a relief when you have the ability to understand the conflicts around the related metadata and the user stories, avoiding upfront breaking your org. We find that keeping a metadata dictionary up to date, creating and managing the various user stories and add those to releases is hardly doable using isolated solution. However, this happens a lot, with all the frustration. And with frustration comes also risks and costs. Now obviously we built Elements to take away exactly that frustration, resulting in minimizing operational risks, avoiding solutions that are actually no solutions. As we have seen, ROI is easily achievable, shift left across the entire implementation cycle does make sense, and leveraging tooling makes a difference. Now if you want to see how this works in practice, simply contact us. Book a chat with the people who have gone through that frustration, so you don't need to have to. Thank you very much for your time.
Get into the hole for this, using nothing but that. Let's get it organized.
Okay, let's build a filter.
Better get some coffee going too, someone.